What is up, everybody? Excited to have Patches, who is the CEO of Turtle Moon and HGraph Punks, for this month's executive suite within the Lighthouse report. Patches, welcome, man. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
So definitely excited to have you on board because the ecosystem of Hedera is certainly one that has been on a lot of individuals' radar. Can you touch a little bit about your background in the blockchain DLT space, including what made you interested in launching initiatives on Hedera in the first place?
Yeah. So I've been in crypto, I guess about a year and a half, a year and 3/4. And as a technologist, I understood the underlying value of how a decentralized, mechanism of consensus could really help just computing. And so I got into first Doge is what actually got me in. I know a lot of people hate on Doge, but in all honesty, I think the amount of people that learned crypto literacy from a dog meme coin was very high, including myself. And so after that, I got into SHIB. I really, went all in on the dog themed coins at the beginning, but it was a really good learning experience, especially SHIB as they created their Shiba swap. It made me understand how DEXs work, liquidity pools. Um, and then I just kept pulling the thread and got into Binance small cap coins for a while and got rugged a bunch and learned both the really good communities and then really bad communities, and was understanding kind of how the culture, I guess, in crypto and just the space was. And then I started looking because I knew I wanted to build a project, and I started looking at the underlying architectures and how to start creating. And so I looked at Sia Coin, I looked at uh, was it Cardano, I looked at XRP, and I would create like little applications, nothing too much. I set up a node for a couple of them, like I was a couple Sia nodes running. Um, and I really liked Cardano, and I was about to kind of like set up shop and just start building out on Cardano. And then I got a message from one of the friends I met in Binance Small Cap Coin, and they're like, "Hey, have you checked out HBAR?" And I plunged into research on that for like 5 hours in one day. And then after 3 days of just researching it, I moved more than half of my Cardano bag over into Hedera and started just building. It was the speed, the fact that it wasn't a blockchain, that iteration of technology with the hash graph, the cost, and the applications that I wanted to build was to democratize Web3 interactivity with non-technical people. And
Yeah.
one of the main things is cost and ease of development and accessibility. And speed, I think, is essential for people to understand what they're doing when they're interacting with it, especially coming from Web 2. They're not used to like waiting 15 minutes for an Ethereum transaction to complete. So all of those factors are why I kind of went headfirst into Hedera architecture.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we all definitely come into the space via different means and mechanisms, but I definitely want to get into some of the ecosystem building and ease of use that you guys are facilitating a little bit down the road. I do have to say, congrats. HGraph Punks launched in early September 2021. You guys are almost coming up on your 1 year anniversary here, and I'm sure given everything that's going on with Turtle Moon and HGraph Punks, that it has been an insanely busy year.
Yeah, not much sleep. A lot of stuff done though. Yeah, HBAR Points has been a really, that was our first, that was like the first goal was to create a large scale NFT project on Hedera, because at the time it just hadn't been done. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And so what the scope of HBAR Punks was to create a large scale NFT project and find all the flaws or architecture that's missing, and then build those, and then help the ecosystem grow by open sourcing where we can and building services where we can. And yeah, over the last year, we've had a lot of success. We've built and we've been a part of a community that's been building that really is open and accepting, and really really enjoys. You can have opposing views, but you don't tear down each other. You try to understand each other's point of view, and you can agree to disagree very easily in Hedera. So it's a very welcoming community and accepting. And then over that year, we did a lot of really cool things. Like I helped run the Hedera wide NFT auction for charity over the winter, where I got to talk to Leaping Bear, which was really cool. He joined that event, and 65 plus artists on the chain donated their time and energy, and we raised over $100,000 for abused women and children's shelter as a community. And it's just things like that, that community building and that ethos of how do we do a real world impact and improve the quality of life of others. Is why I really just kind of love the entire Hedera ecosystem, and I don't see myself ever leaving it.
100%, 100%. Within the mission statement of HGraph Punks, and you did touch on it a little bit. The mission statement is to create a large scale NFT collection with the best user experience imaginable to demonstrate why Hedera is the best network for NFTs. I think user experience I definitely want to get into with Turtle Moon and what you guys are doing in Turtle Moon in a couple of minutes here. But can you just expand a little bit upon why you believe Hedera is the best network and ecosystem for NFTs? Which aspects of Hedera set the network apart from other layer one ecosystems that are out there right now?
Yeah, it's I touched on a little bit, but it's the cost and the speed are two main factors on why I picked it. But then as I dug into it, the ease of development is also extremely high. The documentation and the understanding of the network is easily accessible. It's a very good built out documentation. If you're a JavaScript engineer, which I am, I'm a full stack JavaScript engineer. I can write in Ruby and other things, but that's my main code base. That's the biggest pool of engineers on the planet is web devs. And if you can enable them to engage in the Web3 environment and build applications, it's huge. And that's what Hedera has done. And so their JavaScript SDK, it allows and abstracts the, hundreds of lines of Solidity contracts to figure out the royalties of a token, if you're like, say, doing something on ETH. And instead, it's just 7 lines of JavaScript talking to the network. And the network does a lot of the heavy lifting, which also provides a lot of trust. And so, if you do a less than symbol when you're supposed to do a greater than symbol, you're not going to accidentally lock $34 million into a smart contract. Instead, the network is going to execute, say, if I sell an NFT to you, I don't have to rely on my Solidity contract to execute that royalty. It's the network. And so any transaction that goes to the network just processes these variables that you can set very simply. And so not only is the ease of use better for users because the cost of minting, say, 10,000 NFTs is only $78. So if you're a non-technical creator, you can engage in this community at a large scale for objectively small amount of money comparatively to an ETH or a Sol project. And then the speed and the user experience of sending HBAR and that person getting it in 3 seconds, of buying an NFT and seeing it in your wallet instantly after, I think is necessary again for that transition of Web 2 to Web 3 users that aren't savvy to what is happening on the back end. What is the network change? Instead, you're trying to build simple, very nice, slick applications for users to digest. And they don't need to know the network. They don't need to know the underlying architecture. They just need a good, quick experience that gives them the value they're looking for from that application.
Yeah,
and I believe Hedera does it. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned $78 for 10,000 NFTs for creators to mint, and I should note, I believe that's in perpetuity. Like that's not going to change, correct?
Right. So unlike ETH, where it was pinned to an amount of ETH, which then fluctuates with USD value based on markets, Hedera has a pegged to USD fee structure. And so if HBAR goes up to $10 in HBAR, that'd be great. You're still going to spend $78 for a mint. So that would be about 10 or 8 HBAR if it's at $10. And so you don't have the problem of success making it more and more inaccessible for people who might not have a wealth of money to engage in this space.
Yeah, and you touched on it briefly, but I wanted to expand upon it or ask you to potentially expand upon it. So in early 2021, throughout 2021, we witnessed competition pulling away from Ethereum market share. As far as this market's concerned, I'm basically, you could talk about networks or protocols like Polygon, Solana, etc. How much of an opportunity? I see a lot of synergy in what happened in early 2021 as far as what's happening or what's been happening over the past handful of months within Hedera with building. How much of an opportunity do you believe the Hedera network has to capture market share as this kind of next iteration of this cycle develops, and we make it out of kind of this bear trend, bear market into over the next handful of months or couple of years here? And I guess to follow up with that, how much of an opportunity, how far along in the journey do you think we are from a user experience standpoint? Because I think that that's extremely important, as you've stated.
Yeah, I think the potential success for Hedera is extremely high, and it's not. I'm not a maxi. I like to say that in most of my interviews. I have a lot of different coins, and Hedera is a unique layer one where it can both, I think, excel as a layer one on an enterprise level because of its compliance mechanisms of KYC built in and other things that are needed for giant enterprise applications, along with its ability to supplement other friction points of other chains and become a layer two when needed. A
Yeah.
good example would be the consensus service from Hedera is a very good linear timestamp of events. And if your chain, like say Solana, if you had some sort of staking mechanism and Solana has falls off of time in a linear fashion, you can use Hedera Consensus Service for the start and stop of when people stake certain NFTs to not need or be afraid that you can't calculate or can't depend on this certain friction point on this certain network. And instead, you can still use Hedera as a supplemental thing that you need for your application, interact on Solana chain with payout and with Phantom Wall and other things. And I think there's a lot of other applications where Hedera can become the solution for other issues on other chains. And with that, I think the adoption and usage will be exponential because not only is it an amazing layer one that can be used by enterprise to, just regular NFT users to anyone in a computing capacity, but it then also can be used and should be, in my view, to supplement the issues that other chains may have for both speed and linear timestamps and just other efficiencies that are inherent with the hash graph over a blockchain.
Yeah, no, and I think that even within what you just stated there, if you pay attention to what basically occurred with Australia New Zealand Banking Group, or ANZ Bank at least, their ASDC Australian dollar stablecoin started with the tokenization service of Fireblocks and utilized Ethereum. And then we see a more recent announcement with Open Zeppelin integrations for security aspects or whatever those integrations are being utilized for within Hedera, but using the Hedera network for certain initiatives, whether that be speed or efficiency. And it's kind of the way that we see these things scale out. Like they want integrated into Ethereum for X, Y, and Z, but they can build Hedera on top of these things for whatever number of reasons from a utility standpoint. That's probably speed and cost, obviously, first things first. But yeah, it was a really interesting announcement. I think we're going to see many more things like that over the next handful of months. I did want to get into
quickly.
Yeah.
Just to quickly touch on that. The ability for you to execute Solidity contracts, Hedera is integrated with EVM, and there are applications just like SaucerSwap that do use Solidity contracts. Fairly certain they used Uniswap code base and made it function on Hedera, and now that DEX is the most efficient, cheapest DEX I've ever used because anytime you do a farm or anytime you do liquidity pool tokens or anytime you claim, it's just fractions of a penny for that transaction, even though it's executing a smart contract. And so that efficiency, again, to supplement other chains executables, just like in your example, I think is paramount to the adoption and success of large scale applications and user adoption.
100%. I did want to get into, so recently, so in the middle of August, you guys published I like how you guys titled it The Last White Paper for HRAF Punks. So I want to give you the opportunity to discuss some of the major initiatives and updates within that white paper. Mainly I have bullet pointed here, the Liftoff Metaverse, NFT staking and farming, as well as a fungible token. Oh yeah, those are my two notes. So NFT staking, farming, the fungible token, and the Liftoff Metaverse, which I know you guys are doing in collaboration with Basizi. So
yeah, so the last white paper, just for clarity, it's not the last time we're going to update our holders or people, the potential holders. It's just It took 5 months, 4 or 5 months to get this thing together. And it's because when you do a white paper and you're hitting all of these things and you're, an organization like us that's just, we're doing a lot of stuff in the background. There's things that we're working on that aren't public yet. We have to get different partners aligned. It's just a lot of time and energy to get one giant document done. And then at the end of the day, I don't know how many people read the whole thing. um, so instead, we're opting to do quicker iterative cycles of dev blog updates and like updates on the medium that will be quicker, smaller bite-sized chunks. And at that point, I think it's going to be better for keeping our holders and non-holders informed on what are we building. So just yeah, a little
No,
bit
I
of a
mean, that totally makes sense. I mean, and I think that you see iterations of white papers, updates of white papers consistently because this market, this ecosystem is not static. You consistently see changing, and then even with projects and the way that projects are building out, you need to be able to test out exactly what your user base really wants or needs, as you grow and as the ecosystem grows in tandem with your project growing. So it totally makes sense to me. And I think that the consistent updates via Medium posts, dev posts, things like that, I mean, it just makes sense, right? The Can you give anybody, I know within the last white paper, you mentioned there's going to be 2 final drops for HGraph punks. But you don't mention timing. Is there any sort of insight that you might be able to give for maybe the second to last drop?
Soon, as soon as possible. We are so HVAC Punch, Turtle Moon, a lot of overlap between those two. And the Turtle Moon Launchpad, I'm currently working on to fully utilize Hedera Consensus Service instead of a database, and utilize HGraph.io for talking to the mainnet instead of a database, which is what we did on the old Launchpad. We built that architecture before wallet signing existed. So it was actually sign in with email, give us your wallet ID, and then you send one HBAR and we send it back. And that's how we verify, it's this whole rigmarole. Now we're just such a more mature ecosystem. We're updating to really just use the mainnet. No databases where possible, just use the mainnet as truth.
Yeah.
But that has to be completed before we can start rolling out launches. We do have the first launch September 3rd, Cretes, at 2 p.m. Eastern. And so with that, we are starting to solidify our roadmap. So soon we will have a real date. But right now it's just Renly would kill me if I said an actual date. And I did want to loop back. I'm sorry, I answered the last white paper, but I didn't talk about I didn't talk about the farming or tokenomics or any the liftoff. So yeah, we're again focused on building architecture and infrastructure that allows versatility. And so when we do have a farming platform live right now. When we launched the white paper is when it went live for our glitch punks. And the way that we farm there is again using the Hedera consensus service. We take timestamps of when this wallet ID with this token ID has initiated a farm. And then if they say it stays in their wallet, we don't take it out of their wallet. And if they were to go sell it, then we get the timestamp from the mainnet and we say, okay, well, you did not complete the farm in time. Or say they wait 1 second after the farm is complete, then sell it. We can look at the mainnet and say, okay, well, that was 1 second after you earned the farm. Here is your coinized punk that you earned, and you have also sold it. So it allows us to use the truth of the mainnet for everything and not have to remove, or you trust us that we're not going to lose your NFT while we're farming. And the same goes for staking. We want to have the most flexible methods possible with the least amount of trust needed to get cool functionality onto the network. And then the liftoff, which is as a musician, I am extremely extremely happy to get that going. We've partnered with Vicente from Vicizi, and we have an initial platform built out in Spatial, and we're building out a custom platform right now to allow streaming of live bands playing in LA to our metaverse. And it will be a token gated metaverse where you can go and watch shows. And then we have a bunch of other ancillary things that we want to do inside of that. But it's been a long time coming, and it's been really cool to work with Vicente and get all of these details in place. So yeah, just the next couple of months we'll be rolling out some stuff, having our first concert, and really excited to get that going and start empowering musicians to
Yeah.
benefit from the versatility and the revenue share and residual revenue share of NFTs in the Web3.
Yeah, I mean, I think both. It's a massive use case in my opinion as far as empowering and creating a level playing field for musicians. I'm kind of in the same boat. Super heavy into music and bands and recording for probably close to a decade. I don't have as much time as I'd like to now, but you don't really see those really easy to use and at least scaled platforms out that you facilitate like I said, a level playing field for musicians. And there's tons and tons and tons of musicians that would love to have kind of that those eyes on what they're doing in just a fair way, because it's almost who you know, not how good you are necessarily, and especially as a musician. But then even with the staking and farming aspects, I think a lot of the times it's really easy to interpret things just coming from the NFT stance. But when you're building out real tools, there are a lot of crossovers into real world applications that could be utilizing the tools that are used as a basis to start with NFTs. So it's just building out and strengthening out the network over time. I think it's a great transition to talk about and pivot towards Turtle Moon, which is certainly facilitating infrastructure and services for the Hedera network and the Hedera community. I wanted to start with hgraph.io. Turtle Moon facilitating Hedera's first GraphQL mainnet API. And I know that might be a little bit heavy for people that may not be tech oriented or devs to understand what that necessarily means. Can you describe in like an easy to understand way exactly what facilitating a GraphQL mainnet API into Hedera means?
Yeah, at its simplest form, it just allows developers to simply pull data off of the mainnet however they would like in a very quick fashion. And so a good example would be getting total volume of a collection before hgraph.io and just using the regular REST API that is in existence. It took me 18 hours to get the total volume transacted on all hgraph prompts, because it would take multiple calls per transaction to get all of the data I would need for that, that calculation. With hgraph.io, it allows me to get that information within 3 seconds.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's an example of the way that you talk to the mainnet is much more pure, and you also get to say, hey, this is the data I want back, and the structure and naming of the data. And so it again removes a lot of the friction of how do I talk to the mainnet, and it allows creators and developers to think, okay, now I have this mainnet data, what do I want to do with it? What am I creating, not how do I create? That's like the simplistic line that we kind of think about at Turtle Moon, is like, how do we remove how, and how do we just allow them to focus on what they're building instead?
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, it's basically, it's streamlining all of the tool sets that might exist within Hedera and making it more efficient as far as, for builders that just want to maybe pull certain aspects of all of this data. And like you said, might not want to spend 18, 20 hours trying to parse it all themselves. It just kind of gives them that tool set to be able to do so, depending on what instances are trying to pull within 3 seconds, like you stated, which is, I mean, that's an immense value proposition for anybody looking to build on a network. So, right. So Turtle Moon's doing a lot, and I have a ton of bullet points here, and I'm really interested for you to talk about some of these. So can I kind of just run through all of the services that right now are showcased on Turtle Moon's site, and maybe allow you to talk about some heavy hitting stuff within what you're doing, or maybe some milestone aspects?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds
Right.
great.
So I want to start with the Launchpad. So 11 projects launched so far, but you do mention in the white paper that the Launchpad is getting a complete overhaul. So do you want to touch base on the Launchpad?
Yeah. So I'm when I develop, I always like doing more than one thing at once. And so parallel development is key. So we're working on utilizing hgraph.io onto the Launchpad to remove the need for, again, databases, while also heightening the data set that we can provide users. Our first run at that was, if you go to our Launchpad and you go to a collection page, like if you go to the main page and hit explore, You'll get the total supply, total volume, weekly volume, day volume, how many owners, last sale, average sale, and the biggest sale for that collection. And that is all one call to HGraph.io.
Wow. Yep.
If you go into then the NFT view, you'll see that we also have the price history and a chart for each NFT and the total volume that only that NFT has done along with its last sale. Just trying to provide information that users might want if they're looking to buy the NFT to see what it last sold for. Again, giving more use case to how HGraph.io can bring all of this technology and bring the mainnet data to the forefront of how we interact with applications. The next step that I'm working on right now is removing the databases that we have in place and instead supplementing them for Hedera consensus service, which allows you to put metadata in the mainnet, and things like our navigation, things like the way that we mint is pretty database intensive right now. And again, I'm midway through changing that so that we only use Hedera consensus service at the purest form, because now we have HGraph.io, which is extremely quick, light, and easy to talk to the mainnet. The old architecture, again, we would take data off the mainnet and put it into our database so that we could query it better. And so we're going away with that. And I think it's a nice, pure example of how you can utilize Web3 decentralized database for intense applications and for mass adoption.
Awesome. Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, even within the Moonshells aspects, maybe touch base a little bit on, some of the alpha and beta tools that you guys have been building out for additional functionality on the Hedera network.
Yeah. So Moonshells, for anyone not familiar, they're a project that Turtle Moon launched that is intended to be our alpha and beta testers, essentially. And so they tested our farming platform. And that was it was a very successful test where the Moonshell that was farmed, so it's an NFT, its shell color would then get an egg. And that NFT would be minted on demand and sent with the same color as the shell. And then after that egg was farmed, the baby that came out of it, baby Moonshell, would have the same shell color as its parent, along with that parent's serial number inside of its metadata when it was dynamically created. And so we built a very intensive, we use cartoon turtles, but the application usage of having a 3-tiered farming system is well beyond just NFTs. And it allows a very versatile, dynamic set of interaction between users and an application that application keeps that consistency of interaction between the first, second, and third stage. And that was a wild success. People are still farming. And then we also had our Dow Platform, which I believe was the first NFT token-gated Hedera consensus service Dow vote. The Moonshells voted on their fungible token. You had to have your NFT to vote, and it was recorded on the mainnet. And they picked greens. So when we mint the fungible token, it'll be greens. And then we're working on a couple other applications right now for, I'll just say it, you get some alpha here. The platform will be for token gated giveaways. A lot of people use Discord, a lot of people use Twitter, but in an NFT project, if I have 15 NFTs, I only get to enter once in a Twitter giveaway. And so having a token gated system that allows you to enter as many times as a holder as you are, and then when the giveaway is executed, looking at who still owns those NFTs, so you can't just enter and then sell all your NFTs or something. It's I think a new cool dynamic that will allow closer and intimate engagement with people and give holders more value for what they hold, instead of, again, using other tools like Discord or Twitter, Web2 technologies, to try to execute what is really a Web3 giveaway that you're trying to do.
Yep. And I think that we see that a lot where, it's okay right now because a lot of people are using something like Discord or Twitter or Telegram or whatever to facilitate and build community. But it's very, it's number one, it's kind of siloed, and then it's very Web2 based. Touching on Discord aspects, I know that you guys also created for Hedera the first verification, confirmed sales, and confirmed listing Discord bots for Hedera. If you can maybe expand upon the reasoning behind that, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but maybe touch on it a little bit.
Yeah. So that was way back when Exact Wallet which no longer is supported, had a backend API, and you could just scan a QR code back in October and get validated with all of the NFTs that you held. And it was a very sleek application. Hashpack has become the kind of main wallet at this point for Hedera, and we support Hashpack and created new bots that the confirmed sales just looks at the mainnet, sees if anything is confirmed for that token ID. Same with the listings, and they both utilize HBAR now. And then the verification bot makes you sign in with your wallet. There's a lot of verification bots on Hedera, but it goes to another website and you have to sign in with your wallet, and then checks the mainnet and sends it back to Discord and gets the rolls. So you have that verification that you don't just know a wallet ID, but you actually have access to being able to log into it. And we do plan on rolling these out, but it's been as a priority lower than a lot of the other things like the Launchpad, these newer NFT tooling, and the just all of the other plethora of things we're doing, HGraph.io. But it is still on our roadmap to build these out.
Awesome. All right, so I think I only have a couple of things left here. No coding minting solutions that Turtle Moon is helping to facilitate for the community. Open source tooling with the ease of ability for creators to enter Web3. So do you want to touch base on some of the solutions you guys are providing for potential creators in this space that are looking to kind of start their journey in Web3 and just don't necessarily know how to code to be able to do so?
Yeah, that's definitely the Turtle Moon tools are really, I'm really proud of that project. A lot of people use it to mint still. And we don't have metrics because it's open source, and we didn't put any metrics in it because we didn't want anyone to the fear that we're looking in it or doing anything with private keys. So it's a open source application that is a desktop application for Windows, Linux, and Mac. And it allows you to not code at all and just upload images, put in the description, then the name, click mint, and then it will mint that NFT into your wallet without knowing any code or how to engineer it. And that's, I think, paramount again to the adoption. And the whole reason why we started this was to empower non-technical creators. So a simple GUI that allows you to mint, I thought was extremely important. And it's been, again, one of the main minting tools on the network since its creation in October and November of last year. And I wish I had more time to keep it updated because there's a lot of things I want to put into it. But a new update is coming for 9.4. And I plan to also have fungible token minting in there as well, so that it can empower creators not just for NFTs, but also if there is any fungible token project that doesn't know how to create, they'll be able to use that in the same manner.
Awesome. I think there's so much synergy in what you guys are doing, and I guess maybe just one of the last things I wanted to ask is because it's very clear that you guys are building out in a very collaborative way with the entire ecosystem. You're building out tool sets for seamless use and integration within the Hedera ecosystem as well, and focusing on community. On that, through that lens, being that you're in the community so much, like, are there any projects that you're super interested in as a community member that maybe are outside of HGraph Punks or Turtle Moon or Moonshells? Which projects are kind of piquing your interest right now within the Hedera community, if you were to name a few of them? And I know it's probably really hard to name a few of them.
Yeah. I think it's easy to say Hashpack Wallet, Zeus Marketplace, Saucer Swap are three of the big pillars of usage on the network, and they all have amazing teams building out some really cool stuff that's just needed. It's needed for Hedera to be successful. There's other stuff like HBAR Space, which is kind of a first attempt at a social network / utility platform for Hedera, which is really cool. It's not too many people are talking about it, but it's run by the old Fugitives, if you remember the Fugitives team. Yep. There are, there's Hash Guild, Hash Tools, just a lot of really cool creators right now on the network that are building out some amazing stuff. So you're right. I know after this, I'm listening like, oh, I forgot them and them. There's just a lot of really cool developers. And then just to touch on it, even if we are technically competing in a capitalistic sense, that's never truly realized in communications, because the development community on Hedera is just so open to talk to each other all the time that I can exchange DMs with anyone from any team at any time if I need to, and it's very inclusive, and it's just like we're building together. It doesn't matter if our product offerings might overlap each other. Users will decide. And I think a good example is like Zeus had Dutch auctions, and they have Dutch auctions on their site for a little bit, and then we launched a Dutch auction website last week, and our Vicizi and HGraph Punks, the liftoff. These were 6 NFTs that were created for that partnership, and then it's really helping us with having some revenue to pump into the liftoff and all that development. But I don't, we didn't see it as competing, even though it is technically a competing, project. So there's just a lot of camaraderie, and there's a lot of openness on the network, which again is why I really love working here. And even though I'm working 12 plus hours a day, it doesn't feel that draining, because the community and just what everyone's building here is really awesome.
I 100% agree. I mean, it's amazing to kind of watch all the collaborations that go on, and I guess I would say co-opetition, basically. I mean, I don't necessarily see that. I mean, I see it in other ecosystems, but when you start delving out into Hedera and the ecosystem, I mean, there's so much, co-building going on. It's just absolute, it's really insane to watch, and it's like an honor to be a part of that community. I did want to say, thank you very much for your time, Patches. I certainly don't think this will be the last time we're having a discussion. And yeah, I mean, if you have anything to send us off with, I know you're busy, so I appreciate, taking an hour out of your day for us in the report here. So
yeah, the only thing I'd say is, if you haven't looked into Hedera, I'd encourage it. If you're a person who is a creator or a technologist or just a holder and like really like engaging, I think anyone in that triangle really gains a lot of benefit from Hedera. If you're just a user, then you'll get your NFT faster. It'll be cheaper to get. There's a lot of really cool projects here. If you're a developer, it's cheaper to execute on the network. It's very fast to stand up applications. And it's just a really nice community, and we welcome everyone. And if you have questions, just pop into some Discords and ask questions around, and we'd love to have you.
thanks, Patches.